Hello everyone, we're returning to the budget constraint, which is what we did in the last unit. And our equation was price of x times x plus price of y times y equal to income. And the basic idea is very simple. However much you buy of x multiplied by the price of x, that's how much you pay for it, plus however much you buy of y times the price of y, that's how much you pay for it. The sum of these should be your income or less, right? So this is as much as you can do, and we developed the budget constraint in the last unit. I want to say a few more things about what's going on here. The first thing to remember is that this is because you are a consumer and you are a very small portion of the market. So you are a price taker. This is not going to work if you are buying labor, if you are buying stocks and shares and you're a billionaire and you account for 30% of the market, things like that, right? All kinds of situations where you may not be a price taker, but ordinary everyday buying, milk, transport, which is what we do and what our experiences are, usually you're not navigating the price, you are a price taker. So you take the price, you've got an income, and then price of milk times milk plus price of transport times transport, got to be less than your income or equal to it, right? So that's the budget constraint we developed in the last unit. Now we are going to adjust this and you're going to learn some things. So a reminder that your budget constraint actually looked like your production possibility frontier. The PPF, where you had opportunity costs, where you said, what can I acquire, things like that. And we're going to use that intuition to learn a bit more about what's happening with the budget constraint. So the budget constraint, using our data from our previous example, $2 per rice, $4 per transport, income of 500. You could buy 500 rice, no transport. Or you could buy 250 transport, no rice, right? So the first thing to realize is your budget constraint looks like your PPF, what we did early in this quarter. So when you start thinking of the cost of transport, don't just think of dollars. And you're going to understand why in a minute. Think in terms of how much rice you give up. Conversely, when you think of the cost of rice, think in terms of the transport you give up, right? So think in terms of opportunity cost. Don't just think in terms of dollar prices. A few things. The budget constraint is like the PPF. You may wish to acquire lots of rice and lots of transport out there. You can't attain it. It's outside your budget constraint unless your income goes up or prices reduce in some way. You could purchase down there. We used to call this unemployment when we talked about the whole economy. But from the perspective of a single individual, if you buy below your budget constraint, it means you are not spending all your income. That's what it means. This is what you could buy with your income. You're not spending all your income. You're buying below your income. You will end up It's savings. And usually you will take these savings, put it into your bank account, put it into your retirement funds, put it into financial markets. So when it comes to the theory of the consumer, we have to remember that what we do when we talk about everybody put together, which is the PPF for an economy, is very different than what we say when we're talking about one individual. So perspective is everything in this graph. In this perspective, just one person, just one consumer, if they are saving, it's going to go into financial markets. When you come to input markets, and especially when you come to macroeconomics, where we ask the question, what happens when people do savings? When people don't spend all of their income? We're going to get very interesting answers. But for now, we're going to assume that if people save, then we are talking about them making a proactive decision for future consumption against current consumption. So I would end up actually doing a PPF where I say future consumption, current consumption, future healthcare, current rent, right? And we're going to assume that people are making those decisions. The technical details of this are beyond the level of this class. But, you know, it's a really important question about whether we treat this from the individual perspective as people just not consuming. Like, what happens if there is a recession and I try and give people tax breaks and bonuses and they just don't spend the money they put in their bank account? Will that stimulus check work? Will it not? This is at the center of macro. So you have to take a whole new course. We're going to set it aside for now, and we're going to assume that in general, people maximize their utility, right? So I'll do more with that in a minute. But the budget constraint, remember, is like your PPF. It's like, what can I acquire given prices, given my income? Which is like the PPF. What can I obtain given resources, income, given productivity, prices? What can I acquire? What can I not, right? What's interesting is the budget constraint for an individual is usually a straight line. Because the individual is a price taker. So when I did the PPF for the whole economy, I kept drawing this curve that bowed out, and I kept talking about laws of costs. But that is for the whole economy. This budget constraint is for one individual. And from my individual perspective, it's a straight line. So the first thing I want to remind you is that we are storytellers. We are visual storytellers. And when you tell a story, you want to remember from whose perspective the story is told. Right now, in the theory of the consumer, we're doing it from the individual consumer. This is going to be even more important when we come to the theory of the firm, where we do it from the perspective of one firm. So you have to keep in mind whose perspective are you showing when you tell the story in a graph. And in this case, this is the individual consumer. This is what they look like. So just remembering that our budget constraint is like our PPF options, let's take a look at our options a little more closely. Do you remember that the quantity demanded was a function of the price of the good, income tastes, price of complements, price of substitutes, etc. All right? So we know there's lots of things that are going to affect our decision making. So the question is, we are going to have to work through the decision making between consumer tastes and consumer options, right? And we're working right now with consumer options. Your budget constraint is your options, right? So let's take a closer look at this. We know that your income is one of the things that affects your purchases, right? So here I am, right? I've got an equation that says the budget constraint is price of good X times quantity of good X plus price of good Y times quantity of good Y, and this must be equal to, less than equal to, income. Let's say your income went up from 1,000 to 1,500. Right? So your income goes up, nothing else goes up. Remember how we treat ceteris paribus, one at a time. So if your income goes up from 500 to 1,500, then what it means is the best you can do, if you put all your income in rice, is 750, but then you have no transport. Or you can put all your income in transport and the best you can do is 375, but then you have no rice. And there you go. So the first thing you want to realize is that an income increase means a parallel shift in the budget constraint. So this is like what you've seen before. You've done all these PPF problems for me, where you had growth, where you had ability to do more goods because of productivity, right? From the individual perspective, an increase in income is like that. From an individual perspective, you can buy more, you can access more. So the first thing to remember is income effects. Income effects will show up because your total capacity to buy things has gone up, right? You can just buy more of everything. Parallel shift outward. So one thing we know is that if income goes up and nothing else changes, your budget constraint will shift out because you can buy more things. So we're going to go back to our original budget constraint. A reminder that I showed you that when income increased, the budget constraint shifted out parallel outward shift of the budget constraint, right? Let's say instead of thinking about a change in income, we thought about a change in the price. So right now, the price of transport is $4. What if the price of transport decreased to $2? Because, for example, I'm a member of the University of Washington and UW has decided to subsidize us when we use public transport. Right? So you use your UW pass, you get cheaper transport, fell to $2. What that means is while the price of rice is still $2, so that the maximum rice I can get is 500, right? The price of transport fell to $2. So where I used to only get 250 max, I can now get 500 max. This is my new budget constraint in green. So can you see that the effect of price decreases is kind of like the effect of income increases or growth? And it makes sense, right? If something becomes cheaper, you can buy more of it. So the opportunity cost idea and the budget constraint idea is to alert you to what you already learned when you learned about the PPF, the Production Possibilities Frontier. That was for the whole economy, and you needed changes in the whole economy to get shifts. This is for one individual, just for you, your story, not the whole economy story. It's a straight line, because that's the way it works. You're a price taker. As I've mentioned before, when I go to Rite Aid or when I go to Costco, I don't go and bargain with them, how much should I pay for rice? When I take the bus, I don't fight with the bus driver, how much should I pay for the transport, right? I just take the price. So I'm a price taker. I take the price. I got my income, straight line budget constraint. So a very specific set of assumptions about my relation to the market. This is not going to work in auction markets. It's not going to work on eBay. It's not going to work in input markets where I am the only person who's buying workers' time, right? Lots of assumptions. But ordinary everyday goods, this works. Interestingly enough, everything I learned about the PPF is useful. Income increases, this shifts. Price changes, if price decreases, there are changes in the curve and some goods become more accessible and so on. One of the things that we will ask you to pay attention to, and you'll do a class problem on this, is that what happens if my income doubles and my prices double? My income doubles, budget constraint goes out. My prices double, my budget constraint goes in. My total change is zero. So this is the idea of what is sometimes called the real wage. That you have to pay attention to whether or not prices and income change at the same rate. And you know this. You pay attention to your cost of living. You know, your income might go up, but if rents go up faster, you're worse off. Right? If prices go up faster, you're worse off. So you intuit this idea that what really matters is what you can purchase inside the budget constraint. Don't just fixate on prices. Don't just fixate on income. Pay attention to what you can actually access. And you've already had that idea before with the Production Possibilities Frontier. You're just applying that idea to individuals. Now you also already know how to calculate opportunity costs in terms of one good versus another, and you also know how to think about changes to this curve in relation to income prices of different goods. So we're going to stop here. This is our budget constraint, which is our options. We have to think about how we will choose among these options. And that was something we had mentioned earlier, right? That we don't know if, for example, a particular community will choose oil versus environment, guns versus butter, right? So we're going to pay attention now to the other side of the equation, which is out of my options, how do I decide what I buy? And that's the theory of the consumer and utility.